the mid-1990s, the James Bond gang was notorious. Terrence Lawton and his associates had pulled off over 500 burglaries for millions of dollars. Their egos had grown almost as fat as their wallets.
They would brag in their local bars or restaurants about who they were. They actually would take some of the jewelry that they stole and they would have it reset, sometimes in their name or into different things for their girlfriends. They would brag about it, where it came from.
While the gang was getting sloppy, the cops were getting their act together.
Local police do burglaries, and they tend to be investigated in the individual towns by the individual police departments. In this case, there had been so many of them. They had been so similar that local police were starting to talk to each other.
The police called in Bob Bukowski of the FBI.
They were a challenge. Local law enforcement was having trouble, and he reached out to us, but it became a team effort because we weren't going to do it alone either.
Informants fingered Lawton, Anderson, Kirkland, and Smith as the James Bond gang. The FBI put the gang members under surveillance, but the suspects were expert at avoiding police.
Any attempt at traditional surveillance always failed because they were just extremely aware. So they go to incredible lengths to make sure they're not being followed. We call it to clean themselves before they go and do a burglary. They'll spend hours jumping on buses, going on subways. They get into their own cars and will drive around for extended periods of time.
Sometimes, on occasion, one of them may be caught coming out of a house, but you can only charge them with that one individual burglary. They knew that they were going to get bail. It was a nonviolent crime.
The James Bond gang was too clever to end up in jail. The FBI would have to come up with another way of outwitting them. So instead of going after the crooks, they decided to go after the loot.
We found out that they were fencing, no matter where the burglaries took place, no matter what state, they were always fencing the stolen jewelry.
It was fairly easy for them to get rid of the jewelry. Just across the Hudson River in Manhattan, in the Diamond District, you can find plenty of people who would be more than happy to take it off their hands and pay 20 cents on the dollar. It's a very, very lucrative business for the middlemen.
For jewelry fences, the James Bond gang was a dream come true.
They became such good customers that the main jeweler, Ron Lerman, had a separate apartment where he was available to them basically 24 hours a day, that they would get paid instantly for their burglary they did.
If one of them was caught, the fence would put up their bail just to keep them working.
When we arrested the fence, Ron Lerman, we did a search warrant, and we come up with $500,000 worth of jewelry in his possession.
Some of the burglary victims were able to identify their jewels among Lerman's stash. The FBI finally had the information they needed to bust the gang.
The James Bond gang was moving the jewelry across state lines, which put them in violation of the RICO statutes.
The RICO statutes are federal laws designed to crack down on organized crime. Fencing jewels over state lines violated these laws. So did the gang's customized car.
They were taking measures to conceal their criminal acts. The car, the sliding compartments, the scanners, everything else. That violates the RICO statutes. The federal laws, the federal penalties are much harsher than the local penalties.
After 2 years of frustration, the FBI and police finally had enough evidence to put the James Bond gang away for a long time. In 1996, Anderson, Kirkland, and Smith were arrested. But criminal mastermind Terrence Lawton was nowhere to be found. The FBI came up with an ingenious plan to catch him. The FBI had 3 members of the James Bond gang in custody, but mastermind Terrence Lawton was still at large. The FBI knew Lawton had a legitimate business, so they came up with a simple but clever sting operation.
They were having trouble finding Lawton, so what they did was they called him on his cell phone, and they told him that the business where he had actually been doing the work, customizing the car, creating the James Bond car, had been burglarized.
Would Lawton believe the story? Would he come out of hiding and risk an encounter with police? All the FBI could do was wait and hope. At first, nothing. Then Lawton drove up in the James Bond car. He expected to see the police. He didn't expect to be arrested.
That was when they started to see what they had. And that was in the form of this BMW that had been rigged in order to commit their crimes. Once they seized the vehicle, they were able to find other gizmos.
The James Bond car was the critical piece of evidence for the FBI.
They were able to make a case against them.
The FBI also discovered the gang's loot.
And we recovered over $500,000 worth of jewelry and cash.
I'm happy that they caught them. It's terrible to know that somebody can so easily enter your home. I hoped very much that they got the maximum penalty for what they did.
The James Bond gang members each faced up to 20 years in prison, but they pleaded guilty and got reduced sentences of between 3 and 6 years. Still, the FBI was happy to have them off the streets, at least for the time being.
Terrence Lawton never spent a day in jail until he was caught by this indictment. It was the first time he actually went to jail.
The James Bond gang was gone, but not forgotten. With clever planning, brilliant execution, and unforgettable getaways, they left a lasting impression on their adversaries.
Our feeling towards them personally was just that they were very smart, that they were very disciplined, and sort of a begrudging respect for their capabilities as home burglars.
If I were to describe Lawton and his crew, they were clever, but not clever enough.